Good morning, students. Today's chapter is a continuation of History's Lesson 7, and we will be discussing about iron smelters and factory owners. Children, before we discuss the chapter, I want to show to you a few pictures that we are going to read about, and we begin with the sword of Tipu Sultan. Now, children, the first picture which you can see in the slide over here is the sword of Tipu Sultan. Tipu's sword was made in the late 18th century. Written with gold on the steel handle of Tipu's swords were quotations from the Quran with messages about victories in war. Children, notice the tiger head towards the bottom of the handle. The next picture which you are seeing, children, is of Francis Buchanan. Now, this person toured through Mysore in 1800, a year after Sultan's death, to find out the technique by which the special sword of Tipu Sultan was made from wood steel. In this picture, children, you can see furnace which was used for smelting iron. Smelting means removing impurities. Now, children, in this picture also you can see that through an intricate control of temperature, the smelters producing steel ingots that were used for sword making, not just in India but in West and Central Asia too. The sword of Tipu Sultan and wood steel. The spellings of steel are wrong over here. It should be S-T-E-E-L. We begin the story of Indian steel and iron metallurgy by recounting the famous story of Tipu Sultan, who ruled Mysore till 1799. He fought 4 wars with the British and died fighting with his sword in his hand. Tipu's legendary swords are now part of valuable collections in museums in England. But do you know the reason why the sword was so special? The sword had an incredibly hard and sharp edge that could easily rip through the opponent's armor. This quality of sword came from a special type of high carbon steel called wood, which was produced all over South India. Wood steel, when made into swords, produced a very sharp edge with a flowing water pattern. This pattern came from very small carbon crystals embedded in the iron. Making of Tipu's swords. Francis Buchanan. I have already showed you his picture in the slide. Toured through Mysore in 1800, a year after Tipu Sultan's death. He had written about the technique used to prepare the swords. Wood steel was produced in many hundreds of smelting furnaces in Mysore. In these furnaces, iron was mixed with charcoal and put inside small clay pots. Through an intricate control of temperature, and the smelters produced steel ingots that were used for sword making. Woods is an anglicized version of Kannada word ukku, Telugu hukku, and Tamil and Malayalam urukku, meaning steel. Indian wood steel fascinated European scientists. Michael Faraday, who discovered electricity and electromagnetism, spent 4 years studying the properties of Indian woods. However, the wood steel making process, which was so widely known in South India, was completely lost by mid-19th century. As the swords and armor making industry died with the conquest of India by the British. Imports of iron and steel from England replaced the iron and steel produced by craftspeople in India. Again, children, I am showing you a slide in which you can see the handle of Tipu Sultan's sword, and the second picture is that of Tipu Sultan. Abundant furnaces in villages. Now, production of wood steel required a highly specialized technique of refining iron, but iron smelting in India was extremely common till the end of the 19th century. In Bihar and central India in particular, every district has smelters that use local deposits of iron ore to produce iron, which was widely used for the manufacture of implements and tools of daily use. The furnaces were most often built of clay and sun-dried bricks. The smelting was done by men while women worked the bellows, pumping air that kept the charcoal burning. Now, children, in this picture you can see iron smelters of Palmau, Bihar. This picture is given on page 89 in your books. Now, iron smelting furnace. Now, what was the reason? Yes, what was the reason? Why were these furnaces abandoned? Now, iron smelting furnaces were abandoned when the colonial government prevented people from entering the reserve forest. The iron smelters could not find wood for charcoal to light the furnace, neither could they get iron ore because they were not allowed to enter the forest. Many iron smelters had to give up their craft and look for other means of livelihood. By the late 19th century, iron and steel was being imported from Britain. Ironsmiths in India began using imported iron to manufacture utensils and implements. This lowered the demand for iron produced by local iron smelters. Now children, in this picture you can see map of India and the shaded portion is Chhattisgarh. Now let me tell you a little bit about Chhattisgarh. In the year 1904, in the hot month of April, Charles Weld, an American geologist, and Dorabji Tata, the elder son of Jamshedji Tata, were traveling in Chhattisgarh in search of iron ore deposits. They had spent months on the costly venture looking for a source of good iron ore to set up a modern iron and steel factory in India. Jamshedji Tata had decided to spend a large part of his fortune to build a big iron and steel industry in India. But this could not be done without identifying the source of fine quality iron ores. Finally, they found what they had been looking for, and that was Rajhara Hills. And Rajhara Hills were known for the finest ores in the world. Now, in this slide, I am showing you the Rajhara Hills in Chhattisgarh, which were producing or having the finest ores in the world. Now children, in this slide you can see pictures of the tribals. Now who are these tribals? These tribals are the Agarias. And Agarias was a community of iron smelters. They specialized in the craft of iron smelting. A few more slides I'll be showing you on the Agarias. Look at this one. This one is also of the Agaria women folk. And again the Agarias. Now, Agarias is the tribal community of Chhattisgarh. What was the role played by the Agarias? Why am I showing you so many slides? The Agarias helped Jamshedji Tata in the discovery of the source of iron ore that later supplied iron ore to Bhilai steel plant. Now, this is a picture of Jamshedji Nusrevanji Tata. A few years later, a large area of forest was cleared on the banks of river Subharnrekha to set up a factory and an industrial township, Jamshedpur. Here, there was water near iron ore deposits. The Tata Iron and Steel Company, TISCO, came up and began producing steel in 1920. The TISCO was set up at a very appropriate time. All through the late 19th century, India was importing steel that was manufactured in Britain. Expansion of the railways in India had provided a huge market for rails that Britain produced. For a long time, British experts in the Indian railways were unwilling to believe that good quality steel could be produced in India. By the time TISCO was set up, the situation was changing. In 1914, the First World War broke out. Steel produced in Britain now had to meet the demands of war in Europe. So imports of British steel into India declined dramatically, and then the Indian Railways turned to TISCO for supply of rails. As the war dragged on for several years, TISCO had to produce shells and carriage wheels for the war. By 1919, the colonial government was buying 90% of the steel manufactured by TISCO, and over a period of time, TISCO became the biggest steel industry within the British Empire. Now, Tata Steel Plant. Statue of Jamshedji Tata was put outside the Tata Steel Plant in Jamshedpur. TISCO was, I have already told you, was set up at a very appropriate time. You can just go through this slide. I have already explained this to you. Now, as the war dragged on for several years, TISCO had to produce shells and carriage wheels for wars. And by 1919, the colonial government was buying 90% of steel from TISCO. Soon, TISCO became the biggest steel plant within the British Empire. The iron and steel, cotton, textile industries expanded only when British imports into India declined and the market for Indian industrial goods increased. This took place during the First World War and after. As the independent movement gathered strength, the industrial class became stronger. The British government struggled to maintain its control all over India. It had to give in to many demands for the rising Indians in the last decades of the colonial rule. Children, again, I'm showing you the slide in which you can see Chhattisgarh, the state which still produces the best iron ore in the world. The second picture is that of Rajhara Hills of Chhattisgarh. Rajhara Hills of Chhattisgarh. Then, of course, in the middle you can see Jamshedji Tata, and at the bottom you can see the factory set up by him, that is Bhilai Steel Plant. Now, this picture which you can see, children, is from your book. This is telling us about the expansion at the end of the war. To meet the demands of the war, TISCO had to expand its capacity and extend the size of the factory. The program of expansion continued after the war. In this slide, you can see powerhouses and broiler houses being built in Jamshedpur in 1919. That's all for the second part of the chapter today. I hope you liked the chapter and enjoyed learning something new. Thank you, children.